David, continuing on our conversation on the topic of PDIT, can you expand on the notion of how leaders show up in their work with teams, colleagues, clients, etc., and the relevance of showing up in the context of PDIT?
You'll recall that I have this overarching theme that I often reference in my work with executive leaders around humility, and that showing up as a leader that demonstrates humility and empathy, genuine interest in others' success, is a strategy. It's not simply a nice thing to do. It is a nice thing to do because it does set a cultural tone. And certainly one would much prefer working in a culture in which there's expressions of genuine interest as opposed to bombastic set of leaders or a particular leader who has a cult of personality that overwhelms the rest of the group, the team, the organization at large. That's part of showing up. And at the very top of the company, we often say what gets modeled gets done. So how a CEO models him or herself sets the tone. And the simplest way of looking at this is if the CEO always shows up late for a meeting, that may set the tone that others show up late for meetings because that's the way things work around here. Or if that CEO tends to be the bombastic, loudest person in the room, then the next level leaders, when that CEO is not in the room, they may adopt that similar style because it's a form of what they understand to be the preferred demonstrated behavior. That can be corrosive to an organization. It certainly is not a culture that when it's extended further and further into the organization that is conducive for that expression of creative thought and high degrees of commitment that I put a lot of focus on when we explored this notion of humility further. And I'd reinforce this by saying this is not strictly in the realm of leaders, people leaders. It could be anyone who has influence. I often refer to an organization as having hallway leaders, those individuals who've just gained the ear and attention and either respect or certainly a sense that that influencer has greater weight, their opinion has greater weight than others around us. So the hallway influencers can also set a cultural tone. And if they are aggressively asserting themselves through high ego and lack of concern for their colleagues, then that's a reinforcement of that top level leadership norm that I touched on earlier. The notion of showing up, the demonstration of an emotional intelligence, and that's something we can explore further at a later point. Daniel Goleman's seminal book from years ago, Emotional Intelligence, speaks to the fact that people can either bring, it doesn't have to be this extreme, but I'll use it for this example, can either bring a high degree of expertise, they have the knowledge to deliver the tangible work of their job, or someone may bring a high degree of care, concern, passion, fun, a genuine integrity, honesty, all of these. We don't have to call them soft skills, but essential skills, we'll say instead, from a people engagement perspective. And we often say in this work that we hire for skills, we fire for behaviors. It's far too common for companies to find that they may have hired for someone who on paper looked incredible, but in the course of their work, they were leaving dead bodies in the wake. It's a bit of a silly way to view it, but hopefully it demonstrates the point that the essential behaviors of highly successful cultures stem from the fact that people demonstrate care for each other, whether it's a leader of people or whether it's a colleague, and that there's this culture of fun, trust, and a commitment still to performance. Each employee owns their work, and having a high accountability, a high sense of outcomes culture can exist with these other powerful positive conditions in play. So that's a bit about showing up.